Where are you watching from? Type your city below. I read every comment. And thank you for the support. Dad, my son Tyler whispered, tugging my sleeve as the librarian handed out paper crowns to the kids. That's Mom. I froze. My phone slipped slightly from my hand. I looked up. At the front of the Storytime circle sat a woman cross-legged on the floor. Her posture, her expression, her calm tone when she read out loud. Even her soft laugh after a child interrupted her. It was all identical. Same rhythm. Same voice. But Ivy had died. 5 years ago. My name is Jason Mercer. I'm 36 years old. I own a small print shop outside Columbus, Ohio. Since 2020, I've been raising Tyler alone. Or at least, I believed I was. I told him gently that he must be mistaken. That Mommy was gone. But I was sweating through my shirt, and my mouth had gone dry. We drove home in silence. I kept seeing her face. That familiar turn of her head. The way she blinked. The way she smiled when no one was looking. That night, I pulled out the manila folder I keep locked in the safe. Inside was the funeral program. August 15th, 2020. 2 hymns. Ivy's request, no flowers. I flipped through it slowly. I remembered every part of that day. The service was distant. Quiet. Her mother, Hazel, had arranged the whole thing. The church had told us something back then. Due to a delay in authorization, a symbolic urn would be used. We never received a cremation certificate. Hazel said she would handle the permits. The next day, she was gone. No forwarding address. No goodbye. That was 5 years ago. I sat down at the kitchen table and drew 3 columns on a yellow legal pad. What I know. What I don't know. What I need to check. What I know. Ivy died in August. The urn was symbolic. Hazel arranged everything. We held a service. What I don't know. Who that woman at the library was. Why Tyler recognized her voice. Why it hit me so hard. What I need to check. Who hosted Storytime. Whether there are cameras. Whether footage exists. Whether I've been lied to for 5 years. Next morning, I showed up at the library just before it opened. Cold coffee in my hand. 0 sleep. A woman was taping a flyer to the inside of the front window. She looked professional. Late 30s. Slim, sharp features. Her name tag said Paige Keller. Children's programs. You're the dad from Saturday, she said, without even turning fully toward me. The kid who didn't blink. I nodded. I have kind of a weird question. She nodded back. Try me. I asked her who the woman was who read to the kids. Paige answered without hesitation. She's not part of staff. She volunteers sometimes. Name listed as Clara Dent. She organizes small events. Lives nearby. Drives a gray SUV with Ohio plates. Brings her own sanitizer. Neat. Quiet. Polite. That's when it hit me. Ivy used to run charity galas. Same layout. Same flyer design. Same metallic gold fonts. She had a style. My son, Tyler, pointed toward the bulletin board. She left that, he said. It was a flyer for an upcoming fundraiser. Logo looked nearly identical to the ones Ivy made when she worked in event planning. That same signature curve along the top border. Paige saw something shift in my face. She closed the distance by 2 steps. We have security cameras, she said. You can file a request. I nodded. She handed me a clipboard. While I was writing down my name and phone number, my phone rang. Unknown number. Chicago area code. I picked up. Mr. Mercer? This is Taryn Voss. I'm a fraud investigator with Equisure. I'm calling regarding a suspended life insurance payout connected to Ivy Mercer. I gripped the pen harder. Taryn continued. The policy had been inactive since the death declaration in 2020. $240,000. Frozen. But 2 weeks ago, Someone reopened it. Changed the executor. Used Ivy's social security number. Same birth date. Different signature. I told her Ivy had never been cremated. The urn was symbolic. The church had made that clear. Hazel signed the paperwork. Hazel disappeared right after. Taryn paused. Legally, she said, the death was processed. The account is real. And someone just tried to collect. Paige must have overheard enough. She opened a drawer and pulled out a binder. You'll want to request church records. Cemetery filings. City death certificate. I'll show you how. I nodded. I'm not looking to make a scene. This is a library, she said. The scene is a whisper. Tyler sat at the puzzle table. He kept looking out the window. She might come back, he said softly. She left real fast last time. As we walked outside, I spotted Hazel. Ivy's mother. Same gray roots. Same heavy leather purse. She looked up. We locked eyes. She froze. Then she turned and ran out the side exit. I didn't follow. I went home. I opened a fresh page in my notebook. Confirmed. Clara Dent is Ivy. Flyer design matches her old work. There is video footage. Life insurance claim was reactivated. Hazel was the original executor. Hazel has been gone for 5 years. I didn't sleep that night. Not 1 minute. My son had seen his mother. Twice. And the urn on our shelf? It was never filled. I was still holding the black binder when I locked the front door. The hinges creaked, louder than I remembered. A loose floorboard near the stairs groaned under my weight, a reminder no one had fixed it since 2019. Her flowers in the hallway vase were dead. I didn't remove them. Let the rot stay visible. Down in the basement, I placed the binder on my father's old desk. Ivy's signature was on 3 of the church pledge letters, precise, upright handwriting. But there was a 4th. That one had the same message, the same font, the same phrasing, but the name had been whited out and written over in shaky cursive. Gloria's. My late wife's mother. I stared at the letters. The dates didn't match. One letter was signed 6 weeks after Ivy's funeral. It still used her name. In fact, several documents were like that. A pink post-it read, "Reprint 3 for Ivy, rest Sunday." It was dated 4 months after she passed. Another note said, "Check board vote before printing." And that one had a sticky stain from coffee. Or something darker. I looked closer. The stain wasn't from home. It was from the church's kitchenette. Same brand of creamer packets Gloria kept in her purse, which she handed out like treats. I ran my finger along the spine of the binder. It caught on a staple sticking out where it shouldn't be. I pulled it free. 3 index cards had been stapled together and shoved between pages. I unfolded them. Church minutes. Budget line edits. But at the bottom of one card, in faded ink, was a phrase I recognized. Don't speak ill of the dead. Rewrite them. Not a mistake. A motto. I opened a new tab on my laptop and searched for the church board members' names. Most were retired. One had died in 2022. Another moved to Oregon. But there was one still active. Miriam Lawson. She taught Sunday school with Ivy. Gloria hated her. Said she was too strict with the truth. I didn't call. I printed out 1 page from the binder, the one with Gloria's fake note to the printer, and folded it into a plain envelope. No return address. Just a message inside. Ivy's name is still being used. Look deeper. I mailed it from the downtown post office, wearing sunglasses and an old college cap. On the walk back, I passed the church but didn't enter. I stood across the street long enough to count the faded bricks above the choir room window. 13. Inside, someone laughed. A woman. Not Ivy's voice. Back home, I boiled a kettle and stared at the binder. I placed it in a locked drawer, but not the bottom one. I wanted it to be found, but only when I said so. That night I heard a knock. Not at the door, on my bedroom wall. 3 soft taps. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. Gloria once said Ivy was too soft to leave real scars. She was wrong. T 84 hours. I didn't go to the grave. Not that week. While Ivy was buried under a cloudy Tuesday sky, I was across town, back at my job at the print shop. Presses thudding. Glue drying. I stacked a box of trifold brochures without reading the cover. I just remember one fell sideways, and I didn't bother to fix it. I wasn't ready to see where they put her. 2 days later, I finally drove up there. No umbrella. No flowers. Just me. Her name was still on the plastic temp marker. The grass hadn't grown over yet. I stood there. I don't know for how long. I didn't cry. I wasn't dry-eyed either. My son Thomas said once. Thomas, my son, said, "You look tired when you're thinking about her." He was right. Back home, I didn't throw away the binder. I opened it again. That blue seal envelope was still inside. I turned it over. Her handwriting was on the back. "Please open this if Loretta tries anything." I didn't open it yet. Instead, I opened a beer. Sat in the garage. Watched the light from the neighbor's motion sensor blink off and on as squirrels crossed the fence. The air smelled like dry weeds and motor oil. Later that night, I heard a knock. Not on the door. On the window. A single tap. I turned off the lamp. Moved slow. Outside was Loretta. In full makeup. She didn't say anything when I opened the door. Just held out a casserole dish. "Loretta, my late wife's sister, said, 'Thought you could use a warm meal.'" I didn't answer. I looked down. Under the foil, I saw plastic wrap. Under the plastic wrap, a folded napkin. It looked new. Cream-colored. I didn't want to touch it. But I did. Inside, one line. Written in Ivy's handwriting. She already knew. I didn't sleep that night. I returned to the house before sunrise. There was no point sleeping. The fridge hummed like nothing had changed. But it had. On the kitchen table was a note in Ivy's handwriting. Ivy, my wife, wrote, "Went to Mom's for a few days. Needed space." I didn't call. I didn't go to her mother's. I didn't even tell our son Peter. Instead, I opened the drawer near the pantry. The one where we kept the flash drives and batteries. I pulled out the old Sony recorder I used in college. Checked the batteries. Inserted a new tape. At 8:45 a.m., I was parked outside a florist on Oak Ridge Street. I said to the owner, Marlene, that I needed information about a past order. Marlene, the florist, said, "Do you have the delivery date or recipient's name?" I gave her both. She typed. Her eyes moved across the screen, then stopped. She said, "Yes. August 14th. Delivered to Calvary Chapel. No flowers, just a card inside the arrangement." I asked, "Can you read the message?" She looked hesitant. She said, "It's personal. I'm not sure I should." I replied, "I'm the husband." She never told me who it was for. She never said why she was there. A pause. Then she read it. "Thank you for teaching me grace. Rest well, L.M." I said, "Do you have a receipt?" She printed one. I took it without folding it. At home, I placed the receipt beside Ivy's handwriting from the program. The loops in the letter M were identical. L.M. At 5:12 p.m., our son Peter got home from swim practice. I asked if he remembered anyone named L.M. Peter, my son, said, "Yeah. Lenny. He was at church when I was little. Mom used to talk about him a lot." I asked, "Did she ever say what happened to him?" He said, "Just that he moved away." That's it. Later that night, I checked her laptop. Ivy's passwords hadn't changed in years. She trusted that I never looked. She was right. Until now. In her archived inbox were 3 messages labeled L.M. One read, "You didn't have to come. But I'm glad you did." You always knew how to bring peace. The second, the last verse you sent me. I've memorized it. Every time I close my eyes, it's your voice. The third, blank. No text. Just an audio attachment. I clicked. Ivy's voice, quiet and trembling. You were my only light in a time of darkness. I never stopped loving you. That's when I closed the lid. I didn't delete the emails. I didn't call her. I didn't cry. At 2:14 a.m., I printed all three. Then I added the florist receipt. And finally, the funeral program. Stapled. In order. The binder was black. Just like the suit I'd wear to the church again. For her. T48H. The lawyer didn't shake my hand. He just slid a manila folder across the table. Ivy left explicit instructions, he said. This stays between you and her. Inside was a letter. Blue ink. 5 pages. Each one signed. She had written it before she got sick. Maybe long before. The handwriting was clean, elegant. The kind she always used for thank you cards. But this wasn't gratitude. This was a map. She started with the year I moved out. When I finally told Mom and Ivy I couldn't keep living with their rules, their guilt, their silence. I thought I was leaving chaos behind. But she told me what happened after. Dad didn't just vanish. He left her everything. Not in cash, in power. His business partners bought her out. But she kept the books. And the dirt. For 20 years, she tracked every lie. Every payment. Every dinner party where Mother smiled and slipped her wedding ring off under the table. Every whispered conversation. Every bank wire. Every photo. It was all there. On a USB drive taped to the back of the 5th page. You were right to leave, she wrote. But I need you to finish this. I sat in the lawyer's office long after he left. Reading. Rereading. She had found out what Mother did. And who helped her do it. And she planned it all, with me as the last move. On the final page, there was a note in larger handwriting. Check the bakery. Ask for the red box. You'll know. I did. Next morning, the woman behind the counter didn't flinch. She handed me the box without a word. Inside. Keys. A printed guest list. A sealed envelope marked. Do not open until August 15th. And a photo. Not of Ivy. Of Mother. With someone who was not our father. The caption on the back. The real reason she cried at your graduation. And that was when I understood what the folder really was. It wasn't an inheritance. It was ignition. And Ivy had just lit the fuse. I called the lawyer the next morning. His tone was distant. Polite. Like a waiter explaining why the kitchen was closed. He said, Mr. Hale. The will has been executed. Everything is already filed with the court. I said, that's not why I'm calling. He said nothing. I could hear pages being shuffled. I said, I want a copy of every document signed between 2017 and 2020. I want every amendment, every notarized form, and the visitor logs from your office. If there's a recording from the day my parents were here last, I want that too. He said, Mr. Hale, are you planning to dispute the will? I said, no. I'm planning to expose what was done to them. That afternoon, I visited the storage unit. The keys still smelled like cold metal. The air inside was dry and still. My mother's piano sat under a tarp. My father's wood carving tools lined the shelf. But what I came for was the cardboard box labeled Margaret. My mother had written it in thick black marker. Inside, letters. Journals. 2 notebooks. One was locked. The other was open. The last entry was dated 2 weeks before her death. It said, he brought the papers again. I said no. He smiled and said, Margaret, they'll forget you anyway. I didn't sleep that night. Next day, I knocked on Claire's door. She didn't open at first. When she did, she was wearing my mother's scarf. Claire said, What do you want now? I said. I'm leaving town. But before I go, I want to ask you one thing. She crossed her arms. I said. What did you do the day Mom collapsed? Claire said. I called the doctor. I said. No. You called the lawyer. Before the ambulance. Her eyes narrowed. She said. You have no proof. I said. I don't need proof, Claire. I need peace. And you made sure I'd never have it. I didn't wait for her to respond. I turned and walked away. At the edge of the driveway, I stopped and looked back. Claire stood there in the doorway. She didn't cry. She didn't call my name. She just slowly shut the door. At the courthouse the next morning, I filed my motion. Not to reverse the will. Not to reclaim money. But to request a public investigation. Into undue influence. Into witness tampering. Into the disappearance of the original 2015 will. The clerk asked if I had legal counsel. I said, no. I'm doing this for someone who can't speak anymore. That night I made copies of everything. The journals. The recordings. The visitor logs. The notarized amendments. And one photo. Of my mother smiling next to the rosebush she planted in 2015. The last summer I visited. I mailed the package to the probate court and walked to the train station. Inside the waiting room was a small blue vending machine. I remembered buying lemon candy there as a child. The buttons still stuck. The train was late. I sat on the cold bench and waited. In my pocket, I held the locked notebook. I hadn't opened it. Not yet. Not until I was far from this town. Far from the lies. Far from the people who use silence as a weapon. I thought of my mother's voice. I thought of the way she said my name, like it still mattered. And in that moment I made a vow. They could keep the money. They could keep the house. But they would not keep her truth buried. Not while I was still breathing. Next stop, Boston. Next step, the notebook. And what it might still reveal. I didn't cry when I heard her footsteps echo away from the courtroom. I didn't flinch when the judge's gavel came down like a hammer on rusted metal. I didn't turn my head to look at her, not once. The divorce was granted. Custody to me. No spousal support. The apartment she loved? Gone. The savings account she used for her secret gifts? Frozen. The final blow, the court found her unreliable, based on documented lies under oath. I didn't celebrate. I didn't speak. I stood, nodded to the judge, and left the courtroom with my lawyer beside me and my son holding my hand. Outside, the sky was gray but dry. No wind. No rain. Just silence. Teresa tried to call 3 times that evening. I didn't answer. She texted me a photo of our wedding day. I deleted it. She sent a voice message, her tone suddenly sweet, suddenly soft, asking if we could meet. Just to talk. I blocked her number. I wasn't interested in her regrets. Not anymore. I was interested in the life I was about to rebuild, without her shadow hanging over us. A month passed. Then 2. My son smiled more. Slept better. Ate more. He stopped asking if Mom would come back. Instead, he asked if we could get a dog. We did. A small brown one from the shelter. He named it Lucky. Maybe he understood better than I did what survival really meant. My lawyer called me in April. The fraud case against Teresa's lover was gaining ground. My old company opened an internal investigation. Teresa was mentioned in the first 2 reports. I told my lawyer, I'm not pressing for more. Let the system do what it must. I had no thirst left for revenge. Only for peace. On my son's birthday, we went fishing. Just the 2 of us. He caught a perch. I taught him how to gut it right on the shore. His hands trembled, but he didn't back away. Just like me. That night he asked, Dad, are you happy now? I said, I'm not happy yet. But I'm finally honest. He nodded. Didn't ask anything else. He just laid his head on my shoulder and stayed there until he fell asleep. I cleaned out the storage unit last week. Tossed the last of Teresa's boxes, old cards, her high heels, a perfume bottle she hadn't used in years. I kept one thing. The flight receipt from our last vacation. The one I had printed the day I knew. It's framed now. No words. Just numbers. A date. A time. A return ticket. One way. Because that was the day she left our life. Long before the courtroom, long before the papers. That was the day I stopped pretending. And the day I started rebuilding. If you enjoyed the video, please subscribe to Real Revenge Stories. Thanks for watching.